Hello and welcome to HorsePlayers Happy Hour. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatal, back with you from the Brooklyn Bunker once again, and joined, as ever, on these HorsePlayer Happy Hour shows from an undisclosed location in Massachusetts, looking rather suntanned, if I do say so myself. Matt Bernier, TV's Matt Bernier. How are you, Matt? What's going on?
Oh, it's funny that you brought that up. I was talking to producer Craig before we started, and I said, I know my tan isn't really here yet, but I'm not this ghostly white. I know that. So I think my lights, I got to warm them up a little bit. But no, it's all good, man. It's good. It's nice to get that week after the Preakness. I think it's what we talked about after the Derby, where you can kind of take a breath. You know, maybe the racing is still good, but it's not at a fevered pitch. We can take a little bit of time to kind of take a deep breath and look ahead to what we've got coming up at Belmont Park. I have to say, I do appreciate the 2 weeks between the Preakness and Belmont week, as opposed to that one that we have between Derby and Preakness.
It's complete chaos, and especially with everything that's been going on. And there was a whole lot going on in Baltimore last weekend. And we'll start off with the performance of the winner. I know a horse that you fancied as a 2-year-old, and one that I had my eyes on going back that far, that we somehow managed to more or less talk ourselves off before his triumphant run in the Preakness. Didn't diminish the enjoyment of the race as a race one bit. It felt like a good result for racing to have this terrific story of the husband, wife, owner, breeder, and Michael McCarthy in the winner's circle for such an important race. I know you talked about it earlier this week on the Matt Bernier Show, but curious with a few more days gone by for your reflections on this year's Preakness Stakes.
Yeah, I thought just all around a really class performance from Ron Bauer. You know, I mean, I thought, to your point, you know, we had talked about him as a 2-year-old. I thought there was something there, but I'd be lying if I said I thought he was ready to do that the way that he won. He was just so impressive coming from off the pace. Yes, he may have been down. Well, he wasn't even really on the inside. He was between horses for the majority of the run on a weekend where I think Friday, maybe a little bit more so than Saturday, but it still didn't hurt to be down on the inside. And that's coming from someone who typically I am as anti-bias as it gets. I don't want to buy into one unless it's abundantly clear. And I felt like Pimlico, for better or for worse, Friday and Saturday. Friday specifically, though, the inside just felt like it was an absolute highway. But for this horse to run the way that he did, I thought was spectacular. And I brought it up, and I'm curious your thoughts. I don't know where you really land as far as sort of bounces and sort of regressions off of giant performances and things like that are concerned. That would be my only thing that I would throw out. And it's not a knock about the performance. It's just going forward into the Belmont Stakes. Let's make him 4-1 just for ha-has. Let's just say that's the number he ends up going off at. You know, for a horse who had lived in the mid 80 range to all of a sudden pop a 102 buyer, you know, you can look at it one of two ways, I guess. Is it a precursor of things to come that he has blossomed into this and he's going to live in that high 90, low 100 range going forward? Or is there any concern that you may get a bit of a regression off such a giant top?
I know that Mike Maloney shared that potential concern when I spoke to him in the Money Players podcast earlier in the week. But I am very much of the belief that at this time of year, 3-year-olds just make these leaps and bounds, and I'm much less inclined to look for a horse to bounce. In fact, you see it feels like almost every year from the Derby to the Preakness, it's all these horses coming off of Derby tops, and they typically run back well in the Preakness. And we saw that here with the 3 runners coming out of the Derby running 2nd, 3rd, and 4th in the Preakness. So I'm a little bit more inclined to take the race at face value. He also hasn't had as many opportunities to run on dirt, so maybe he just developed faster and further than people knew. It's very interesting conversation. I've seen a lot of back and forth about the decision to run in the Preakness rather than the Derby, and I've seen it argued both ways. I've seen people cheekily say, see, the owner was right all along, and I've seen other people say, well, what would happen if he looked that good? He would have gone close in the Kentucky Derby. It's an interesting little angle that I'll put back to you. Completely unknowable, but what do you think would have happened if this horse had run in the Derby?
You know, I think Michael McCarthy brought up the point that I probably would side more along the lines of, in that just with the dynamics and the way the Derby was run and the way that it kind of played out, you didn't have anybody making any real moves in the race. It was effectively, you needed to have that sort of early position that I think Rombauer, to me, and I think we had touched on it a little bit, I thought he was taken out of his element in the Bluegrass. Now, I don't know if he ever would have won that race, but kind of by default, he had to be a lot closer to the front just because there was no speed signed on. I think in his heart of hearts, he is a horse that likes to be mid-pack or even farther back if the pace is really off the charts. And I think he was allowed to do that in Baltimore. And I don't know that he would have had as good a chance of succeeding in Louisville with that sort of running style, given the way the race played out, where the horses who were relatively close to the pace were the ones who, for the most part, did the majority of the running. It's easy to sit here and say this because it played out the way that it did, but I think in hindsight, it was probably the right move to wait for the Preakness.
Yeah, it's hard to knock when you have that kind of success. I will note, though, that even though the fractions in the Preakness did certainly seem considerably faster, and clearly the pace held together in the Derby, it is interesting to note that you take Rombauer out there, and they do run 1-2. Like, he was really the one making the move, as much as I, was rooting for Keep Me in Mind and the clunk up there, given what my opinion was. Like, he made this meaningful move, and I think he's probably a pretty darn serious horse. One thing that threw me off about him, one of the excuses that I made with Mike, and I'll throw it out at you too, is I'm so conditioned to being at least a little bit against owner-picked spots. And we used to joke about it, in the early days of the Place with the Letters podcast, how you could make money betting against when the owner picks a spot over the trainer. But as I was saying to Mike, 99 times out of 100, it's because the owner's dreaming on their horse and picks the tougher spot. I think I'll think twice about downgrading an owner who comes from a horse playing background who wants to go to the theoretically easier spot in the future.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's nice when a plan works the way that you hope it does. And, I also can feel for Michael McCarthy in this instance, because whether or not you thought the horse would run that way in Louisville, to see him run the way that he did in Baltimore, it at least makes you, I feel like there's always going to be that what if that's going to hang out there for him, maybe not even for the owners, but specifically for him as a trainer. I mean, this is someone who's already won giant races all across the country. I think the biggest one to date prior to this was probably the Pegasus World Cup. But I can only put myself in that position if I were a trainer and I had a horse that I believed in, and I saw him go and do what he did 2 weeks after the biggest event in the industry. I would have a little bit of remorse, even in jubilation, if that makes sense. It's almost contradictory, but what could we have won the Derby if we had gone there? But, again, the folks who pay the bills are the ones that ultimately get to make the call. And in this case, credit to them. They were right.
You cannot knock a win when it comes like that. All right, let's talk about what we're doing here. We're going to talk more about other things, but we had this little bit of a chance to reflect on the Preakness as the show started. We're here for HorsePlayers Happy Hour. This is a one-of-a-kind contest, and not just a contest today in the form of this Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge feeder, but a year-long contest as well that's going to award 2 additional Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge seats. So by playing in this contest, you got 3 chances. Feed in today into Saturday's qualifier and get the traditional way, or be our top player on tour points throughout the year, which anybody could easily do, even if you haven't played in one game yet. That player will win. And then we're also going to have playoffs at the end of the year, which pair our top 2 finishers week in, week out, our exacta finishers, as it were. And then we're going to beef out that field by having the next 40 players or so who qualify via tour points. And we're going to play that out for another $10,000 prize. So $20,000 added to the pot. We've got the leaderboard up there on the screen now. We'll get to that in 1 second. But the other key thing that I just want to mention before we move on is that the money, the VIG, as it were, collected from your $20 entry, that all goes to Thoroughbred Aftercare, the TAA, Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance, that does the important work of accrediting aftercare organizations, and our friends at the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. We'll talk about them more. We've got our special promotion coming up with them, but they also get money every time you play in this event. So here we go. Here is Actually, I don't think we've done this yet. This is our first look at the tour screen. Matt, I'll let you run down the top few people on the tour for now.
Yeah, number 1, David Browning at 190 points. Number 2, Bruce Meyer at 180. 3, Gregory Lewis at 140, tied with John, let's call it Massian at 140. If producer Craig could give me a little scroll, there we go. Number 5 was John Gilpatrick at 130. Number 6 is Stephen Walsh at 120, tied with PJ Priscanis at 120. 8th, looks like we have a 3-way tie for 8th. Michael Domabil at 110, Truls Engebretsen at 110, and Daniel Mustari at 110. And then you have the folks who are just outside that top 10, but you've got folks in the 100-point range. And I think we're finally starting to see some parity's not the right word, but you're starting to see the points standings come together as opposed to those first few weeks where it was, it's like any time you have anything at the beginning of a season, whether it's Formula One or any kind of point standings, it's going to be kind of static for a bit. Now you're going to start to get some little fluctuations as we go on week in and week out.
The multiple scores phenomenon. Yeah. And the way we set this up, the top 10 scores are the ones that count. You get 100 points for a number 1 finish, 90 for second, all the way down, top 10 each week getting points. I don't know. I have a feeling that it's going to be possible, in theory anyway, even when we get to the back quarter of the season, that somebody could come in, get hot, win a couple in a row, and be right in the mix, as it were. So hopefully people aren't discouraged at all by the fact that we're 5 contests in now. As you can see from that leaderboard, you get 100 today, you get 90 today, you get 80 today. You're going to be right in the thick of things. And then you also have to remember that there's a couple of ways that can work for you in terms of qualifying for our playoffs at the end of the year or potentially winning the whole thing. So, you and I are both big believers in the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge. Certainly, for my money, the most exciting contest of the year. A great opportunity for horse players, no matter what your goal is. A great way to qualify for the National Horse Players Championship. A great way to take a shot at all that money at the top. We're here to follow the qualifying process and usher a bunch of people in, and we hope you will join us. Today's game starts in about 10 minutes with the 6th race at Gulfstream. That's why we had this little break at the top of the show today, give us a chance to talk about all this stuff, but get involved. And again, the money goes to Aftercare. So even if you're just going in there and quick capping or playing all the 4s, it's helping a great cause, and we want to see big numbers in here every week.
Yeah, and it seems like I was a little nervous earlier this morning. I would be lying if I said I wasn't when I took a look and said, whoa, people not realize it's going on, but we've had a nice late influx. Maybe it was just a matter of folks watching golf this morning or, doing whatever it may be. But we are approaching that 200 entry threshold, and you still have plenty of time. So if you haven't gotten involved, make sure you get an entry. Again, to Pete's point, it's only $20. And in the grand scheme of things, not only are you playing along and you potentially have giant prizes that you can win, but you're helping the horses. And really, that's the most important piece of this entire thing. So good opportunity to get in. And to your point, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw someone toward the end of the regular season just go on an absolute tear, even if they weren't someone who played week in and week out. If they just threw in, let's say they played those final 10, 12 weeks and they just caught lightning in a bottle or went on absolute crazy run, there's no reason to think that they couldn't get involved and really put up a number. And I think also the idea of it's your best 8. Well, maybe you've got 5 or 6 really good scores, but you've just kind of struggled along for those other couple. You can play it right through to the bitter end. And I think that is, again, the idea was to try to entice people to come along and play along throughout the entirety of the regular season. And hopefully people are enjoying it. I mean, based on turnout, I would see no reason why they're not enjoying it.
We're holding a pretty good number all in all. I also want to say we want you to be part of the show. That's the magic of these Horse Player Happy Hours is we do it live. We have a chance to interact with you. So however you're watching this, there should be a way to comment. Those comments will appear here. I can even pop them up on the screen. For like this one, for example, from Oakley Jeter. I think that must be a New York sports fan of a certain vintage, such as myself.
This is Trish Smith.
There you go, Trish Smith. ordered one of my books and asked you a question. Well, so Trish, thank you for chiming in. And if you have questions, if you just want to shout at, if you just want to say hi, leave us a comment. We appreciate it immensely. And again, we want you to be part of the show. Now, before we talk about this race at Gulfstream, let's look ahead to the Belmont Stakes, albeit briefly. You mentioned Rombauer being pointed to the race. He's surely going to look good. But, I mean, for me, we heard this week that Malathot will not be heading in this direction, going to be waiting for the more traditional route for fillies over the summer. It sounds like CCA Oaks, Alabama. Can't really blame them for that, though it would have been a fun story to see her stacked up in there. But, I mean, for me, Essential Quality is going to come here to New York as the horse to beat. This horse that Brad Cox, since day one, has been talking about as a Belmont horse who comes out of the Derby, for my money, as the best horse in the race. Who do you think is going to be the favorite?
Boy, I would be stunned if it wasn't him. I mean, I can't imagine a scenario in which he floats up to 4 or 5 to 1. I just, even with this field being as salty as it looks like it could be, even without Malathot, which I'm disappointed in, but to your point, I do understand where the connections are coming from, especially if it does sound like it's not a physical thing, but she's a little light and they want to put a little bit more weight on her. I totally get it. Makes all the sense in the world. Not to totally go off on a sidetrack. I found it interesting. They said with the year-end goal being either the Distaff or the Classic. To me, I mean, that's not a nothing statement. You could have very easily just said Distaff, and if she goes on a run, maybe you consider it at the end. I mean, they're very, it may not be happening when we had hoped that it would in the Belmont. They're very clearly of the mindset that she could handle the boys at some point. So that's another story for many, many moons ahead of us. But, you know, with this whole Belmont, the way that it's shaping up, I'd be stunned if he wasn't the favorite. From a pace standpoint, and it's part of the reason I love the Belmont Stakes, my favorite of the Triple Crown races. I think it's going to be the best Triple Crown race this year. From a pace standpoint, I'm going to be fascinated to see who shows up, because there's a part of me that wants to look at Rock Your World, where they at least potentially kick the tires on going to New York. I mean, he genuinely had no chance in the Derby with the way everything played out. I still maintain, from a talent standpoint, he's the wild card. I mean, he could be the superstar in there that we just don't really, or we're not totally convinced of just yet. And at 1.5 miles with his speed, boy, he feels like a prime candidate for a race like the Belmont Stakes if John Sadler and company want to go there.
It's a great point, because when you think about, I had this thought with Pass the Champagne in the Oaks, and I had this thought with Rock Your World in the Derby. I think it goes for both of them. My first instinct is, well, we learned nothing. And then my second instinct is, well, we learned that the form of the races they were coming out of was actually pretty darn good.
Really good.
Rock Your World made Medina Spirit look pretty ordinary. And Medina Spirit had beaten Hot Rod Charlie. He was confirming that form. So, like, you can spin a yarn. And then, of course, as we've talked about so many times in the Belmont Stakes, contrary to what some people's knee-jerk reaction would be, it actually can be very, very kind to speed. Yes. So, not that I expect Essential Quality to be too far off, but he's an interesting X factor. I'm digging to try to look for a list of probables for the Belmont Stakes, and I think I just about have it. It is a very long list. I'll just roll down it real quick for those who are interested. Getter Number, Bourbonic, Midnight Bourbon, Keep Me in Mind, Rombauer, Rebels Romance, Promise Keeper, Rock Your World, Known Agenda, Central Quality, France Go to Inna, Hot Rod Charlie, Brooklyn Strong, and Wayburn, all listed as possible or probable on the HorseRacingNation.com website.
I mean, there are horses who like to be forward in that list that you just ran down, but I think if you're trying to look for a speed of the speed, I mean, I would have to think Rock Your World could clear if he wanted to. Hot Rod Charlie can be forward. Midnight Bourbon can be forward. France Go to Ina. Again, I kind of brought that up last week. I think everybody looked at that UAE Derby and said he doesn't have any kind of early foot. It's not the case. He was a very tactical horse in Japan. And if anything, he was very keen early on at Pimlico. And I think maybe, hopefully with a run under his belt, he'll be a little bit calmer going 1.5 miles, but he's going to be forwardly placed as well. Rock Your World, especially, I had seen somewhere something along the lines of a 10 or 12 to 1 price on him. That, to me, if you got anything close to that, oof, buddy. I mean, I would be too interested not to take a chance.
That's interesting. I just went on one international website looking for prices and didn't see any, but that might get me to put my hand in my pocket or click a few keys or send a few emails, whatever it is. Let's pivot. Producer Craig is right. Let's pivot to Gulfstream Park. We'll come back to this. We do have 3 minutes to race number 6, the first in our contest. Send in those extra entries, folks. I want to see this number get up a little bit higher. You're absolutely right, Matt. It's a good number. It's a respectable number, but I want more. And the horses deserve it. So put in your extra entries. Gulfstream Park, race number 6. We are on the turf going a mile and a 16th for these maiden 25s. I had kind of a crazy idea in here, but since you're the guy who gave out multiple 20-1 shots that fired, including one that won last week, Matt, we're going to start with you.
Yeah, I don't think this is a crazy horse here, but you're looking at what I think is a pretty generous price. I like the 6, Anonymous Source. This is a horse who I think you always need to be cognizant of the runners who are trying to do something else, and for Mother Nature reasons, they haven't been allowed to. And this is a horse who they tried to get on the grass in all 3 lifetime starts. Has only tried it one time. I know it was going 5/8 as opposed to the route of ground here, but that first start was very, very competitive as far as the rest of this field is concerned. And yes, you got to deal with the layoff, but if you think the horse can route and based on the pedigree, I don't think I'm that concerned about it. I think Anonymous Source is interesting at 9-1.
I see it. I definitely see it. It's a race where I want something at a bigger price. I was going to go a little bit wilder and take a shot with number 7, Streaking Gray, the second-time starter. That was reasonable form coming out of that first run with a winner and 2/3 from the 3 to come back. First time in a maiden claimer. It's just a guess, but in a race where I didn't really trust the ones at the lower end of the odds spectrum, I figured I would take a little bit of a shot. And this is a horse that I'm not concerned at all about not being bet. This horse is supposed to be a long shot and maybe can surprise at a price.
I think people, we've talked about this on here before. I think people get too hung up on Tampa to Gulfstream. Everybody loves the Gulfstream to Tampa angle. Well, it doesn't have to just work one way. It can go both ways. And yes, maybe a maiden special at Tampa is not the same as it is at Gulfstream, but you're still talking about pretty significant class relief. And I'm with you. I look at a field like this, and that's sort of just the MO. If I don't love any of the short numbers, why do I want to just settle on $6 on the 5 horse? That to me doesn't really do anything for me. I'd rather shop around, and you and I have the longest and second longest shot on the board.
Let's see if we can get something going here. While they go to the gate, we got a couple others. An Aunt Pearl question. What are the plans? Is Ascot still on the agenda, or is that done? I don't know the answer. If I were guessing, I would think it was done. I would think after an effort like that, I would think, rather than have a super tough challenge, taking the connections a little bit out of their comfort zone, I would assume it would be a rest and regroup. But have you heard anything, Matt?
I would be very surprised. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn. When I chatted with Florent Giroux Sunday after the Derby, and then I interviewed him the next day for the podcast. But when we were chatting Sunday night about the number of horses that he had been on, he made sort of the inference, and he may have even said it in an interview, that he just didn't think she really moved on from 2 to 3 physically.
He did. He almost was surprisingly candid in his interview after the race, saying that.
He just said that she just doesn't physically. She just kind of stayed the same. And I tried to make mention of that in a tweet I put out before that race, which the Edgewood or whatever it was. The idea that we take for granted that progression from 2 to 3, especially with fillies. I don't think it always happens, and we've seen it with the 2-year-old girls going. Well, now 3-year-old girls on dirt. So many of the best 2-year-olds, they just didn't take that step forward, and he seemed to that seemed to be his sort of estimation of it. And if that's the case, I'd be stunned if they went to Europe with her.
Chris Couples chimes in. He's given out some winners on the air here before, wondering if Caronville, the 4, could get loose. Chris, hopefully he's another one to consider putting into your mix there. Did you give that one much count?
I think she goes to the front. I think my filly sits just off. I would hope they don't get into a duel. But yeah, I mean, look, if you're loose on the front with the 4 an $8 horse, especially in a short contest with 7 races, I mean, that's not a bad thing at all.
Something to consider. Another one will sneak in here from Steve. No Trevor McCarthy at Belmont tonight, as he already made his way out to Santa Anita. I have not heard, but that stands to reason. As well as he's been riding, you wouldn't think he would miss out on a card, and we know he is going to be moving his tack out there as they break from the gate at Gulfstream, and we'll see if either of our runners, looks like my runner is going to be going off to the early lead, who drifted all the way out to 40-1. I'm hoping that Caronville just lets this thing going, thinking it's impossible, and maybe the Durf will carry me home.
Now, did you envision this? Because this is surprises to me.
I mean, second-time starters, you kind of never know. So I can't be like, oh my God, I'm shocked, because we didn't have a ton of form to go on. But I mean, this is even Durf or no, unless a breather gets involved here. This 23-2 is going to probably spell an early shower. Streaking Gray may be looking for a place to lie down around the quarter pole, but I hope that I just had a token wager here. But it'd be fun if I get to cheer by the time they get in the lane.
I mean, look, whoever's riding really dropped anchor.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I wanted to see. Now just try to run efficiently. It's tough, though, with the 4 and the 5 breathing down the neck, but apparently has a little bit more, letting out a little bit more here. Trying to get them all off the bridle here as they turn for home. I think I'm getting done here, but it's we got to run for the money anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the 5's got a full head of steam. There were a couple of awkward steps mid-pack with a few runners, but yeah, at this point, there's the patented Paco look under the shoulder.
Yeah, keep finding though for second, maybe. What do you think?
I mean, look, I don't see the 8 coming and getting you.
Yeah, I think we're home for second, unless we just stop to a walk. Not bad for 40-1. We'll take it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's going to be a capper, you would think, for a place price, no?
Yes, it should be. It should be, even with the favorite in there, just being that number. We'll see. Occasionally that you can get chiseled a dollar or two. But yeah, for those that don't know, in this contest and all the contests on horseplayers.com and horsetourneys.com, the prices are capped to 20-1 on the win end, 10-1 on the place end. So the most, whatever that thing paid to place, even if it came in with the second longest shot on the board, you're only going to get $22 in our Horse Players Happy Hour contest. Let's see. Texas Joe. 7 about time. Done enough to hold on for a second.
I was going to say, maybe not.
That counts. We have Chris was concerned about the 4 not going to the lead. I think the thought was that the 7 was a no-hoper. It would be my guess, and they tried to run like the horse wasn't even in the race. But that doesn't always work out, especially at the lower claiming levels. And yeah, you had mentioned there was a weird step in the race that MVP 548 mentions. It was the 6, but fortunately everything stayed up right there, which is what we want to see. What a perfectly timed question, Brian. The idea of the cap on the final odds is to keep one race from determining the contest and just having it be where it would actually, without a cap, it would almost be a valid strategy to just pick just try to pick one horse who was going to tilt the contest every time. And this way, the idea is that you're going to hopefully be able to have to be right more than just one time. There was a famous contest way back in the 1990s. I think it was in Connecticut. Maybe it was the old Auto Tote contest where everyone who got a prize was because in the last race, Frisk Me Now, I think it was the Fountain of Youth, won. There was a famous Durkin call associated with it too. He's 99-1. It was actually like 112-1 or whatever. But anyway, I think that was sort of the sea change moment in contests where people said, there's got to be something. It's got to be a better way to make this work. And honestly, I feel like all in all, I understand the logic. Again, I understand somebody feeling like they're getting jobbed out of not getting their full credit for their longer price. But it kind of works out anyway because the bigger price is way over the cap. You do de facto get more points because fewer people are willing to take them. So I think it's a pretty good real world solution. Where do you stand on the caps and contests? And then we should move over to Belmont.
Well, I was actually going to just pose a question to you. We see people, especially folks who are new to contests, there's There are many schools of thought that what's the ideal contest? Is it the $2 win place live event where, you get people that complain about stabbers who at the very end, they're just playing the numbers and playing the math, which is a strategy. It's part of the deal. People love the pick and pray, which we use here for this contest. But some folks then say, who knows when all of a sudden there's a steam horse in the fourth leg that you thought was going to be 10-1 and opens up at 5-2 and all this other stuff. And then there's the live money folks who just say it's a bankroll contest, go from that point. How would you feel about cutting the cap in half?
I think it'd be really, really interesting for a certain type of contest. It wouldn't be. They've tried formats where it's like you just get points and the money doesn't matter at all, which I think is going too far into the chalk direction, kind of boring. But a seriously low cap that really rewarded your ability to find live horses. And I do think that even in that format, it would still reward people who are picking longer prices, again, for that same phenomenon. It's you're creating this little market, right? And you're getting extra points for points that no one else has. So you still, if you really love that 15-1 shot, even if the cap is only 8-1 or whatever we're talking about in this theoretical world, you're going to be one of the few people that has it, and your confidence is going to be rewarded. So I actually think it's really interesting.
My thought was, just trying to spitball and find some sort of, you're never going to appease everyone, but people like to, everybody likes to complain. Do you split it in half so or something close to it? Let's say 12-1 as opposed to 20-1 is what you cap things at. Or what if you had a contest where it's just win and you took out the place price where, look, you still need to identify a winner, where you're not getting the $22 to run second that you might, and that could be such a dramatic game changer in some of these instances. And I do wonder, maybe that eliminates some of the stabbing, the air quotes stabbing that you hear from folks, because you still need to have the horse that finishes first. It's
interesting. All right, let's come back to that. But let's talk about this Belmont race real quick. We are Belmont's second race. We're on the turf going a mile for quarter claimers. I thought that number 6, Take Charge Tina, could potentially be more than just the Steve Bick hunch play. Most recent figures on the turf, you got to go back a minute, but not that far off. And I felt like the last race could function nicely as a prep. Second time off the layoff here. Bet a little bit live at 6-1. I'm going with Take Charge Tina. What do you think, Matt?
I went to the outside. I went with VIP Nation, getting class relief. This is a horse who has run well at this level in the past. I'll be curious about the running style because I think your horse is going to be relatively close to the front as well. I wouldn't mind Manny being aggressive, but knowing that it's Kendrick on the 6, I don't know that you really necessarily need to get into some sort of a prolonged duel. As long as you're close, I think you can take your chances. So, I don't love 2.5-1, but I don't think the price is terrible on VIP Nation.
No, it's not horrible. Let's, as they load, we'll take a look at a few more. Yeah, Brian gets it. Right. I mean, you can just pick all bombs, but you can't win with one. That was the thought. Texas Joe. Yes, it was. I'm telling you, that contest that was the sea change was 1996. But, I mean, the examples come up all the time. Texas Joe's curious about that. Yeah, I mean, it's not like it was just that one incident. I'm just bringing up that one incident as something that helped change the deal. I would say most players are in favor of it because, as you said, Matt, horse players, not shy about complaining. I listen to them complain about the things a lot, especially when I was covering contests. And generally speaking, it's a popular rule that does pretty well.
PTF, not to interrupt you. I mean, there's something pretty significant going on at Gulfstream. These folks are chiming in. You may get put up via DQ.
Oh, that would be funny.
I think there's a legit case for it too. Paco, again, making ridiculous moves. He's the reason that you almost had 2 horses go down.
Oh, we got to watch. We'll go back to that feed after this race. Meanwhile, Texas Joe points out I must have committed a terrible host fail, or he came in late by not saying HorsePlayers.com. That's where you get involved with the contest. So please, it's too late for this week, obviously, but join us there. Set a reminder. Through the Triple Crown every Thursday, we're going to be doing these. And then afterwards, I think we're taking a week off, and then we're going to come back on Fridays. But if you go to horseplayers.com, Horseplayers Happy Hour, you can get involved, Joe. Thank you for joining us there. Let's watch this race for a minute. You're out on the lead. I'm sitting towards the back of the pack, but traveling okay. I'm really now curious to put one of my monitors at least up on Gulfstream to see if the pizza is going to be paid for tonight or what. But meanwhile, you happy with this trip so far, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I thought your horse was actually going to be much more forward. I would take this trip in a heartbeat. I don't know if it'll work out. I keep looking over my shoulder to the Gulfstream feed. I mean, I hate to say it, we've seen it time and time again where you just basically you make a right-hand turn, no blinker, and you nearly wipe out half the field. These are the sort of things that you can't continue to allow stuff like this to happen.
It's very dangerous. It's very dangerous. There's no doubt about it. Now, I saw the incident live, but I wasn't paying enough, clearly wasn't paying enough attention.
We're home and hosed here, right?
Yeah, you're home. Am I going to hold for this exact? I don't think so. I think we're going to get tagged late, but maybe we get a miracle. Nope, it's going to come 8-1, and then I didn't even hold third. Now, let's go back to this Gulfstream race, Craig. If you can throw that up on the screen here.
It's egregious, too.
So you think it's coming down?
I don't know. And well, no, I can't say that. I think it should. I mean,
you've seen enough that you're not sure if it will. All right, where's the horse in question? Oh, my goodness. That was
it's just a right-hand turn. And, the problem is there was a hair of daylight. And it's easy for me to sit here and say, you shouldn't do this sort of thing. I'm not brave enough to do what these men and women do. But at the same time, I'm trying to – all the stuff that I bash on about this is you don't want to have a disaster happen.
It's tough. I mean, the view that I just had it was tough. It didn't look like – it wasn't like – for me, just watching it the one time, and if I'm biased, I'm biased to want it to come down.
Yeah.
But it looked – I mean, it looked a little 50-50. Like it wasn't like a jerk into the lane. He was like drifting into the lane. The spot wasn't really there.
And no change.
Yeah,
doesn't look like it anyway.
I'm not shocked, but
so that's to that point. I'm not shocked either, but that's a problem to me.
And
because
it's not,
what's it going to take? Is it going to take the other horse clipping heels and going down?
That they would have come down then, and that's not really bright. That's what it takes. Now I only had the one little view, and I'd like to see it a few more times and see how many paths were moved and this and that. But it looked at that first glance to me like they were both trying to go for the same spot, and of course they clipped. But We'll hopefully we'll get more views of it. Let us know what you think in the comments here. You're getting some plaudits here, Matt, for the nice pick. Chris agreed with you about the DQ, and that's not wrong exactly, but he did kind of assume he was clear and just go, but the hole was there for a second. It's a tricky one. It's a tricky one. But yeah, it didn't. To this point, it did not look great. Okay, so looks like we've got we're pretty much caught up. A few hellos I'll give. I'll give a hello to Francisco out there, and we'll give a hello to Gilbert. And there was somebody else new that we didn't talk about. Oh, here's another contest question. But you know what? We're going to hold off on that last contest question because we're only 2 minutes at Pimlico, which seems to be, if I'm not mistaken, actually. Are they running on? No, they're not running on time today either.
Why would they?
We just accounted for it much better today. So we've got a 1-5 favorite in this race. This must be that Delacour second-time starter. So Sua, I wasn't even going to pick at 4-5 or even money. Maybe I'm wrong, but Timeform had it as a speed favoring track on debut. The horse didn't finish great on the clock on sectionals. The Delacour runners will improve. This horse has a chance, obviously, but I was going to try Map of America as an alternative. On the Timeform US race ratings, those Parks allowances were better than this. And on pace figures anyway, looks faster early than Sosua. So give me the 3. I'll take my chances against this 1-5 shot here. Am I being naive?
No, I mean, I was going to go with the 3 Map of America as well for that reason. I think you just go. You don't get cute. I think this horse has enough early foot to be able to outrun the inside horse and make that inside horse show off a new dimension that we haven't seen yet. I guess if you're looking for a different opinion or a different thought, I thought something to keep in the back of your mind with a horse like the 5, Pretty Edgy. Pretty Edgy is the only multiple winner in this entire group. This is a filly who's won 3 times. She's making her second start off of a lengthy layoff. You have to assume she got some fitness out of that run on April 30th. Comes back here a few weeks later. I would side more with your horse. It's the same one. I went 3-5 in here, but if you were really trying to get cute, I think you could make a case for either of them. But the big piece for my idea for the 5 is she has won multiple times, and I can't say that about anyone else in this race.
Yeah, it's totally fair. And with that horse so over bet, easy spot for a double win bet. An Arlington Park question from Nathan. All I hear is rumors. I mean, it feels like it would take a miracle. I'd sure like to see it happen. Have you heard anything, Matt, on the Arlington Park front?
I've not. One of the few tracks in the States that I never had a chance to get to, and it doesn't sound like I'm going to if this is in fact it. But I mean, it would be fantastic if somehow there was a last ditch effort to kind of make something happen. But I'd be lying if I was optimistic. If I said I was optimistic.
Brian compliments my equanimity. If that was my 40-1 shot, I'd be a lot more animated. It was a token bet. We were talking about maybe more than pizzas, but my 5-win place isn't going to get me out of my chair.
Pizzas and beers.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I would have been very pleased, but it's also when you get in, talking in front of the screen mode. If I was by myself, it might have been worth at least a strong desk punch or something. But no, I also just didn't. Once I saw it, like I said, my gut instinct was
you were right.
Go either way. Maybe people in the comments are much more agreeing with you than me. So to be fair, I saw it once and I was half watching. So
but your point I think is valid that it wasn't a crystal clear. Oh, and we missed the break. It wasn't. I didn't think it was a crystal clear. To me, it was egregious enough that something should have happened. But at the same time, based on history, I wasn't totally convinced it was going to happen. I thought it should have, but when a precedent's been set, that's that.
That does seem to be the way they look at it. I do look forward to the days, and hopefully we'll have them before too long, where we get more detailed stewards reports with all the good info on stuff like this. Okay, so our horse, Map of America, plenty of run, but has already used a lot of horse to get into this position after missing the break. The favorite did drift out to 4-5, appears to be going the best, but it does look like our 5 will make a run here, and they are shaking the reins. Might be able to get to this 4-5 favorite yet here. Matt,
gonna go right on by, I think.
Let's hope so. Let's see if we can get there. And the 3 is running a pretty big race, all things considered. Yeah, the 1 looks done. I'd say that, and then of course we'll find it here. But let's see if we can get this 5 past.
No, the 1's coming back.
The 1 is tough. I reverse jinxed it there. Put your nose up, please. Put your nose up, please.
Oh no.
I think just. I think it's just 5-1. You don't think? You think do you think the 1 held?
I don't know. It's too close.
I shouldn't have said that out loud about the 4-5 shot. Apologies to anybody who. If I mush this thing into the winner's circle, I'll give myself 50 lashes later. But I think we might have just got it.
It's a tight one either way.
I think we might have just got it. Let's hope.
To your point, this is one too though, where I would make a note about the 3, where she broke as poorly as she did. I think she ran a pretty big race in the grand scheme of things. I know, on paper it's going to look like she was a no hope 3rd. Circumstances led to this performance. I think it was actually better than it was.
Yeah, it did plenty of running. Let's see. Sentient is convinced I'm wrong. It's still the 1. It's still the 1. It's still the 1. It's the 1.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, unless that little bob was incredibly good, but
yeah, I don't want to know. I mean, I think I was just wrong with my first gut. Watching it again, it looked like I'm not sure the 5's nose got in front there late. We'll see that in a minute.
And look, the 1 didn't get out of the gate all that well either.
No, the 1 broke half a step slow. The horse ran well.
Yeah.
We'll see. Maybe the inside's still okay there too. Was another thought I had. Because it sure looked like the 5 was supposed to go right by. But yeah, I hear one of one of the people I need to apologize to, MVP 548. Sorry for the reverse mush. And sure enough, it comes 153 there in Maryland. So hopefully we'll have a chance to do a leaderboard update soon. Let's see. We got Gulfstream will be next. And we've got a few minutes for that. Yeah. So this will be a good time. Once that goes official, which will take a couple of minutes, we can do a leaderboard update. Shout out to Goodo. Appreciate you tuning in, folks. Let us know where you are. Let us know where you're coming from. Oh, we've heard from Howard, the latest member of the In the Money blog writers. Been doing great write-ups at Canterbury. Been an exciting few first days to their meet and their horse player friendly pick 5. You've got an invitation, Matt. If you can get out to Chicago, Howard will take you around. There's some good stuff in that area. I went out for the first and gosh, what sadly could be the only time. I think it was back in 19. I made a trip out there to visit Matt Miller and Brad Anderson of Brad of BC winning fame, actually. And he was kind enough to join us a couple of times last year on the Horse Player Happy Hour shows. And we had a hell of a time. Okay, here we go. Richard Flax, 38.50 in clear first place. Then we've got two 35.30s, Mike Gillum, Charles Lucas, Dave Nichols, familiar name there in fourth, 29.70, Kevin Walsh, 27, Phil Hodebeck, 25.30, Dan Brockman, 25.30, Thomas Piotrowski, 25.30, John Benke, 23.80, and Michael Domabil, a name we've been seeing a whole bunch here. Definitely drawn live for tour points again as part of that scrum of folks, including David Brownfield, another name we've seen a bunch of with those folks in 2210. How many did we get total, Craig? Scroll up to the top, unless you noticed before, Matt.
190. 190,
not bad. I was hoping to crack 200. I'm not going to lie, but 190 is that's up like 30 from last week.
Yeah,
we got to it's the kind of thing. I understand if people are cagey, they don't want too many people playing. They want to get in the top 10 and get their tour points. But we're here for a greater cause, of course, which is the horses. So encourage your horse player friends to participate. I really would like it if we were clocking in at 200 or more every week. So please do that. Tom was on the 5-2. Apologies for mushing you. And go back to work. You can watch the replay later. Hopefully you can watch yourself rise up the leaderboard after that. I asked people to give shout-outs of where they were. Sentient, who called that photo correctly. Oh, cool. Going to be heading out to Churchill for the races tonight. Louisville, Kentucky, just really one of those home away from home places for me. I really absolutely love it there, and am very excited to hopefully get a chance to go back. There's a rumor. Now, we'll see. But there's a rumor we could be doing another live event in the area around Stephen Foster Night. More details on that to come, but I'm hoping so. I've never been to night racing at Churchill. Have you ever? I assume you've been there at some point for the Under the Lights.
I've been there for work purposes. I've never been there for fun. I've done, I think, 3 Stephen Fosters, and it's the other thing too. Every time I've been down there in June, we've had like a tornado warning or some wicked thunderstorms have come through. And wearing and you know this, when you're outside in the heat with a suit on, it's not great. Then you add in a little bit of makeup, and you're, I mean, look, I'm a sweaty mess, a disaster. I'm going, how much longer do we have until we can get this thing going? And little did I know we had 3 hours left. So,
my God.
I have never been down for just for fun. I don't believe that's on the slate this year. Who knows? Maybe I'd be up for a trip down to Louisville.
Well, we'll let you know. We may have a show for you to be a part of, Matt. We'll see if we can get that arranged. So Phil, MVP. This is actually like the 5th week, but you're not way behind. He asked, is this the 2nd week or am I way behind? We've been doing this for a minute, but again, it doesn't matter. It's those top 10 finishes. You can, and here's the other thing. Even nobody's out of winning the whole tour yet, but even if it was like the last couple of weeks, you can get into our playoff system with a top 2 finish every week. So we really designed this with the thought that there'd be a reason to play every week, even if you were just rushing picks in. So Phil, you got to help me out here. Phil, who I said Hodebeck, he says English spelling, which makes me think I'm pronouncing your name wrong. But Phil, as much as I know about English, pronunciations and whatnot. I don't know how to pronounce your name that way. So give me it phonetically, and I'll say it correctly from now on. I promise. Pop that up in the comments. We have Bob checking in from Savannah. Love that. We've got Sentient ready to join us live. We appreciate that very much. All kinds of things going on here. John Gasper chimed in too. He's been very active in these comments. He agrees with you completely.
That's kind of my assessment. I would have taken the horse down. I'm not surprised necessarily that he didn't come down.
But we appreciate folks chiming in and giving us. Oh, here we go. We've got some international participation, not just England. We've got Bucharest.
Nice.
And don't wake up your wife on our account, please. We do not want that on our conscience there. But I do like the we got the crickets. We got all kinds of stuff going on in here. Yeah, keep us posted. Let us know. We have enough time. We can actually get a few other people's opinions out for this upcoming race at Gulfstream. But while we have a minute, Matt, I want to go back to what I think is an interesting question for another horse I know you've been a fan of in the past, Midnight Bourbon. When you're evaluating Midnight Bourbon going forward, I feel like you can make a case. Well, you can certainly make a case that the margin between him and Rombauer is probably not as great as the 3.5 lengths we saw on the track in the Preakness. Just the angle I talk about ad nauseum. When you attend and attack a fast pace, I'm going to rate your ability as better than the raw form. And whereas I think you can argue that Rombauer had the perfect trip, I think you can argue that you could give Midnight Bourbon, I don't know, I could give him 2 lengths, and it gets a lot closer between him and Rombauer. You add in that tactical speed, depending on exactly who shows up come Belmont Day. Is this a horse that's going to be on your radar if he ends up running in all 3 Triple Crown races?
From a win standpoint, no. And it's not because of a lack of sort of admiration of the horse. I really like him. I liked him as a 2-year-old. I don't think he's run a bad race as a 3. I don't think he's run a bad race ever. I think he's just that kind of horse that shows up and runs each and every time. More and more time goes by. I've seen some people bring up the idea of he needs to go shorter, meaning, sort of 1-turn races. I don't personally believe that because I don't think his speed is that good at a mile. More and more, I'm getting to the point where I'm not convinced that he's really at his best beyond 1 1/8, though. Now, that puts him in a precarious position as a 3-year-old, but as an older horse, you have many options at 1 1/8. So there's a part of me that wonders, and I mean, look, I could be proven entirely wrong by this sort of theory, but the idea to me is I could see a scenario in which, and I said it on my show earlier this week, it's not fair to compare him to Gunrunner. It's just not. It's not fair to compare any horse really to Gunrunner. But their trajectories at this point in their career really aren't that different.
Very similar.
And look, Gunrunner was able to end up very, very comfortably out to 1 1/4. I see this horse and I wonder if he's a 9 furlong, 8.5, 9 furlongs, 2 turns. He has the speed to put himself into the run, but he's not a burner. He's not somebody that's going to go out there and drop 45 on your head. I could see him being the horse to beat in the Whitney next year or one of those kind of races. And, maybe I'm getting way ahead of myself, but I could see that being his niche. I'm a little bit dubious as we get longer at this point. But I also don't entirely agree that, turning him back to 1 mile is going to be the thing that really suits him. I don't think he has that kind of gear.
Do you think if you were the racing manager, you would target the Haskell then rather than the Belmont?
100%. I would be, and I was stunned to see earlier, and I say stunned, do that what you will from a terminology standpoint. Mandaloon is looking at the Haskell. I would have sent him immediately to Saratoga to run in the Jim Dandy and the Travers. But having said that, if you're looking for a grade 1, why wouldn't you run in the Haskell, which is typically the same weekend as the Jim Dandy, and then just run in the Travers, 4 weeks later. But to me, Midnight Bourbon, I feel like he's a Haskell horse. That to me, that's a race that hits him right between the eyes. I don't know if the Pennsylvania Derby's being run this year. That race to me seems like it's back. It is back. I would go right to that spot. That seems like it makes
that's a
great
good double.
Deal of sense.
Yeah, that's a good double. If you're right about how far he wants to go, especially. You make an interesting point about the Monmouth race, the Haskell, in that the guy who wins it seemingly every year, who knows if he'd be allowed to participate, and who knows who he's got, who's standing at this point. Talking, of course, about the Baffert situation, which I've studiously avoided to this point, but we might as well talk about for a minute. That's just going to be completely up in the air as to what happens. But what happens next with Medina Spirit? I mean, it's unknowable given the Baffert situation. It sure seems like he's going to be A-OK at the home base, co-owned by Stronach. They let him run in the Preakness. I can't imagine they're going to be meting out punishment now, though. I guess when the split sample comes back, who knows? Where are you with this whole Baffert situation? And if you had to make a guess about Medina, where would you point it?
Yeah, my guess would be the Haskell. I think he fits in there very well. Now, I also brought up on my pod earlier this week, I know he was back in light training, but Life is Good, I don't believe is that far away. I don't think a return is imminent, but I also don't think it's 5 months away.
The Haskell could be his race. I
mean, the Haskell, that kind of horse on that kind of racetrack, to me, that's kind of a no-brainer with a horse like Life is Good.
If he's ready. Point.
If he's not ready, and let's say you want to bring him back a little bit slower, so maybe you end up running him at Del Mar going one turn in a 7/8 kind of race. Maybe it is the Pat O'Brien, something like that against older horses. It's typically not a giant field, usually 6, 7, 8 horses. Based on what that horse did at the beginning of his 3-year-old year, I think he could do anything. I think he could sprint at 5 furlongs. I think he could win it a mile and a half. But I would think Medina Spirit to the Haskell feels very, very logical. No.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. We'll come back to the Baffert thing. We only have 2 minutes here at Gulfstream. I do. I mean, as soon as you said Life is Good, the bulb went off. I mean, if that's a possibility for health of the horse, for the trainer status, you better believe that he's going to look awfully good wherever he comes back. Just based on how fast he's been. Let's talk about this Gulfstream race, though, really quickly, Matt. We've got the Dirt, 7 furlongs, 3-year-old fillies, Florida breds, first level allowance. Who do you like?
I like the 6 in here quite a bit. Patrick's Lass. Feel like this is the kind of horse that can work out a nice forward trip, doesn't have to have the lead, second off the bench. I think gain some fitness. I also like the horses that sit in their return to the races, make the front, and then just tire a little bit at the end. I think you're going to gain or get a pretty significant move forward in that second start off the layoff. I think you're going to get that here. I don't believe the distance will be any sort of an issue. And again, that tactical ability where you can go if it's given, but you are just as comfortable sitting. At 6-1, I think Patrick's Lass is a good price.
I'm going to try Battle Cry. I'm surprised the horse is taking this much money. Maybe it's a good thing. I just thought it had a chance to be the best closer, especially with the 5 out. And the 2 also might be the best closer, but I still feel like 5-1 is enough to play around with this runner. Just had no shot with the flow in the trip last time. There's a world in which that they go fast enough in here that the last move is the move you want to make. Probably a little too slow, but I'm going to mess around with this horse at least a little bit in this spot. Let's turn back quickly to that to the question of the Baffert stuff, because you really made, I thought in many ways, the best point when we had a conversation the week after the Derby, and I was in my full anger mode, which folks got to hear if they listened to the shows or saw me on Sky Sports Racing last week, and you just made the very rational point that I've really picked up on and been thinking about a lot since then, that whatever the case with this, he's more of a symptom than a cause in many ways. And that, coupled with the TIF recommendations coming down this week that are hopefully going to be something that everybody associated with HISA reads, unless there's meaningful, you can do whatever you want to Baffert, unless there's bigger, more meaningful reforms, it's not going to come to anything. And rather than just pile, look, I don't mind a little piling on, obviously I've done some of it, but rather than just get focused on the piling on and turning him into some sort of boogeyman, let's look in the mirror as a sport and try to pay attention to the much bigger picture of what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's naive to believe this is the first time something like this has happened with Baffert's barn. I think it's equally naive to think that Baffert's the only one that's doing this sort of thing. So I kind of taken the approach of he is a symptom, not the cause of where we are. The cause has been we've allowed things to go unpunished for decades. And, you can't all of a sudden expect everyone to just be like, oh, well, now we're going to get our act together because one person, got the slap on the wrist. Well, no. I mean, you've enabled everybody to do this for so long. It's going to take a pretty dramatic punishment and change in the way we go about things. And hopefully we're getting that. But that's just my opinion on the situation. I'm not, by no means am I, saying he didn't do anything wrong. But I also don't think he necessarily deserves to bear all of the brunt because this has been an industry-wide problem, not just a Baffert problem.
I think that sounds right. I sure like where you are with Patrick's last here at Gulfstream. My 7 is starting to run on from the back as well. We could have something to root for in the finish here potentially. Yeah,
I think the Deuce has got a full head of steam here. I don't know if I'm going to go on with it. I feel like I've kind of flattened out. You're spun unfortunately wide, put it that way.
I'm in another county here. Not a track where you can often do that. The horse is finishing.
Come on, Patrick.
Let's see if we can get a 6-7 here.
Come on, Patrick.
Come on with a 67.
Dig in.
Come on, get up.
Are you going to pit me?
Get up for a second. Oh, I might.
What's a photo?
That's a good picking by us. I think it's you. I think that one's 6-7.
Hey, look, when we deserve to pat ourselves on the back, we will pat ourselves on the back. That's a nice little exacta, is it not?
Not bad at all. Not bad at all.
I don't know who got it, but we got it.
I think it's you, Just. What does anybody else out there think? Let us know who wins that photo. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. It looked like the 2 was traveling all over you, and Patrick's last just continued to find throughout the lane. Put that one away. Was vulnerable to the late surge on the outside, and my 42 wide horse. It'll be interesting to see the sheet figures on this one. Let's see who gets this photo.
Oh man, that's close.
Give us a heater. Give us a heater. We deserve a heater.
How funny would that be?
We gotta go to Belmont. So I'm gonna keep that up on. I'm gonna keep Gulfstream up on this screen. And why don't we put on the Triple H screen? We'll put Belmont, and we'll go over there. We'll see if we can keep the good times going. I'm with the favorite here. This is kind of one of these times where I'm envisioning myself. If Caladad doesn't run well, I'm envisioning Caladad's name going on to the no bet list in this. This is 7 furlongs, New York bred, maiden quarter types. I felt like you could make an excuse for the last race. Maybe just moved a little early into a fastish pace. And I felt like the previous maiden 25 fields were better than this maiden 25 field. I'm mainly basing that on the Timeform US race rating as opposed to any digging that I did. I thought might be ready to break through on the cutback in a field that just didn't give me many places to hang my hat. What did you think?
I went to the outside. I understand the case for Caladad. I don't see a ton of speed in the race. And to me, I would like to see Cardenas, who piloted the 20 plus the one shot last week. We're not going to get 20 to 1 or whatever it was on this horse, but I'd like to see an aggressive ride from the outside. Be forward, be proactive, because to your point, I'm not seeing anything else in this field that I'm really capable of sinking my teeth into. And typically, if that's the case, kind of what we just saw in that run at Gulfstream, get everybody else off the bridle, make them make a call. And you know what? More often than not, at these low levels, they're not going to find. So I'd rather be the one setting the pace than trying to rally from off of it. So I went 8-1 in here. I think you and I have been kind of looking at things the same way.
Yeah, we're in good shape. We've had some decent luck. You did get the photo there. Patrick's last gets the job done. Battle Cry finishes second. We have
good pick there. Good pick.
Good, right back at you. We have we have Michael back-to-back nose losses. I feel your pain. MVP called it correctly. Steve was impressed. Oh, here's one going back to our Belmont conversation before. Rebels Romance, fresh face, sharp prep. Belmont Park, familiar to Euros. I think in some ways that's true with the not as tight turn. I just have no idea if he's fast enough.
I don't either. I picked him in our Triple Crown draft, which, by the way, if Medina Spirit gets DQ'd, I mean, I'm sitting pretty, am I not? To go back to back.
We did not make any accounting for this in the rules. Are we going with pari-mutuel results, or is it like?
I don't know.
Is it like if you bet? Hey, we're gonna have to. We'll work that out off air. Production meeting.
It's your company. You can do whatever you want.
But you're gonna claim victory either way.
I know. I'll know in my heart of hearts whether I won or didn't win.
You've won one of these things before. I'm trying to remember which year you won, but I'm 98%
last
sure.
year.
Oh, you won just last year, of course.
Yeah,
that's right. Because Naomi, I keep thinking because she got "'Tis the Law," I keep thinking that meant she won, but no, you won with Authentic, of course.
Yeah,
you won and it wasn't close.
To your point with Rebels Romance, I don't know. I do find it really interesting. I mean, this is. Especially, doing all the work that you do over in England. I mean, we're talking about some sharp people here, and they could have run in the Derby, and instead they said, no, we're waiting for the big one, meaning the long one, because we think he's going to run 10 miles. So I really think if you believe that the Derby and the Preakness took enough out of these horses that we have here domestically, why can't a horse like Rebels Romance get a piece of this thing? Maybe he can't win. But if it's genuinely a stamina test, I almost fear the bigger concern for me would be his running style as opposed to his ability.
Following up with now, is it exact Godolphin ownership on Rebels Romance, or is it one of the brothers who were involved?
I believe it's Godolphin.
So then, yeah, that's interesting that they'd have a second runner with EQ in there. Senian throws in, am I crazy or is EQ going to love the Belmont Mile and a Half? Well, if you're crazy, then Brad Cox is crazy because in his interview on JK+1, he did say from the first time they breezed him, they thought he was going to be a horse who would run all day. What's happening here at Belmont? Where's
I hope I'm going to go right on by here, but I think the outside horse with the white blinkers has got the momentum.
Oh my God! Look at how slow they're going. This looks like real egg and spoon sundial type stuff. And it's not just the glitching video. Even before that, I was saying that it looks like the 8
hanging on.
Yeah, the 8 went away tamely, and the 5 is going to get the job done. So.
Wow.
I'm going to make a serious consideration of the no bet list for Caladad. I'm going to make a serious consideration of the no bet list for every horse that ran in that race.
Yes,
it just looked slow.
That's one of those where I loved my position, and then when the real running started, I said, maybe not.
Yeah, just didn't perfect trip. The old no finish trip, which is not what you want to see. Here's another interesting question: would you downgrade Baffert runners at Santa Anita in upcoming weeks? Maybe a little is my answer. You don't know with these short-term fluctuations of form. You don't even know. It might not even be the Occam's razor reason they're not running well. It could be just like all the distraction and stress associated with everything going on. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be in a hurry to like put in 4 figures on a pick, singling a Baffert horse right now. I mean, I think if I love the horse, I'm not saying I'm going to throw them all out either, but I mean, I think you got to do a little proceed with caution, buyer beware at this point, don't you?
Yeah, I think it would be one of those where if I really liked a horse, I don't know that it would dissuade me. But if there was let's call it kind of a lukewarm feeling on one, then I'd probably side against more confidently than maybe I would at another time. But to the initial piece, if you really like a horse, I'm not ready to just sit there and say, don't play him, or if you're concerned about that sort of thing, maybe you throttle back a little bit on what you were going to do. But I don't think I would immediately just to toss.
Yeah, it's not like I'm going to build plays around beating every Baffert or anything. Right. But I think at the same time, you gotta proceed with a little bit of caution. That was some of the most tepid betting. I mean, Concert Tour, like how cold he was in the betting, and then man, I mean, he just to my eye. Not that there was anything physically wrong with him, like it was dangerous for him to run or anything, but I just thought he looked terrible going to the starting gate, just dripping kidney sweat, and he just didn't look like the same horse. That coupled with the betting made him one of the easier fades in the final analysis. I thought. I wonder what happens with him. I mean, to this point, he's been a bit of a morning glory, I guess. It seems like the barn has loved him even up to the Preakness, and I didn't see any reason before the race why he was going to run better than Medina Spirit. I didn't see any reason going into the gate, and I certainly don't see any reason now.
No, I mean, to me, the big thing is, going back to the Preakness, I found it so, there was no way that he was going to duel. There just wasn't. Especially with everything that's going on, it was bad enough that his horses finished 3rd and 9th. You want to finish 8th and 9th? But, I mean, that would have been a surefire way to do that, especially with the way that Medina Spirit ran. And I know some people have told me or have sent me messages saying I'm a little harsh on my opinion of Medina Spirit from last Saturday. I thought he ran pretty terribly in the grand scheme of things for the way that he ran in Louisville, given the fractions, given who was in close attendance to him. I can't help but look at it and be like, you know what? I expected more out of you, especially with the way the track was. And granted, Johnny V came way off the rail down the backside, which, interesting tactic, but neither here nor there. I expected more. I didn't expect you to get your doors blown off by Midnight Bourbon alone, let alone, Rombauer. But I do wonder if he's the kind of horse that needs a break. I mean, he's run consistently from his debut, which was in the middle of December last year. So maybe you saw a little bit of a tired horse at the end. As far as Concert Tour goes, I'm more and more convinced he's not a route horse. You can win a route race when you're that talented with the perfect scenario, the perfect situation, as we saw in the Rebel, where he was able to walk out there on the front end. When I say walk, it was uncontested. He was basically by himself. But if you're not a true router, you're not really going to be able to overcome any kind of adversity, as opposed to turning him back to 7/8 of a mile. You're fast enough that you're not going to be out of touch with the leaders early on, but you're not so fast that you're dueling 44 to the half. You're a 45-1 kind of horse. You're just naturally more talented. You're going to have the bottom. You're going to be able to really kick on down the lane. I said, if I could get a future bet on the Malibu, I'd take it right now. I think that's what Concert Tour is. I think he's a 7/8 kind of horse.
I like that read. It makes a lot of sense. And I will say, in the past, when I've noticed a horse and I think they're like a Morning Glory type, when the connections praise for them is all out of whack with what we're seeing on the racetrack, it's very often that type of deal. They were, you hear that at Saratoga. You used to hear it with Kieran McLaughlin horses all the time, but he's far from the only one. Oh, this is our Derby horse or whatever. And then they don't run well going short because they're going to be so much better going long, or they don't run well in the dirt because they're going to be on the turf, or sometimes even vice versa. So maybe that's it. Maybe it's just get that thing back to sprinting and it'll be a whole other deal.
Pete, I'm telling you, the hill that I will die on in horse racing is that Frosted was a one-turn animal. And he was just so damn good that he ran the giant races going 2 turns that he did. But I think the Met Mile was actually what he is. And I will die on that hill.
Let's talk about this race at Pimlico coming up. Race number 8 on the dirt. We've got nickel restricted claimers this time around. I like the favorite. The 2 Company Clown didn't break last time. Could be on the lead on pace figures. License to improve, second off the layoff. They're loading. So what's your quick thought on this one, Matt?
Same, echoed. I think, with a start under the belt after getting out of the gate a little bit on the sluggish side last time out, a little bit of a pinch. I think this one just goes right to the top, say, come and catch me. It's not a race that I'll be betting, but unfortunately in a contest, you have to, play along with whatever's given to you. I would try to just take the chalk and move on.
Couple other comments. Chris's assessment of the last is they just let the 5 walk on the lead, which I think is probably right, but it was just amazing how little anybody was moving. One thing I like to do at the end of the week is just go back and review figures of races and then try to make extra notes at that point in addition to what I make in real time. And I have a feeling when we go back and look at that one, I'm not going to be too excited to bet the closers just because they made so little impression. Phil again, and this is explained. I did say Phil Hodebeck correctly. He earlier was complaining about a race result and said chalk, and he put the U in chalk, the English spelling. That's what he meant. So I did get his name right, which makes me happy. But anyway, he wants to know about the Cassie runners coming out of the Derby. He mentions liking Helium. And then, of course, there was Soup and Sandwich. I haven't heard anything about either one and what their next plans are. I must admit I wasn't a big fan of either one heading into the Derby. I mean, I'll certainly evaluate them on their own merits coming back out. But have you heard anything, Matt, or do you have any thoughts on either of those?
I like both of them quite a bit, actually. I think there's some ability, specifically with Soup and Sandwich. I honestly, he had some little breathing thing allegedly coming out of the Derby.
Yes.
And that's why Gaffalione wrapped up on him the way that he did. To me, he just needs as much time as possible. I think he's just a head case. Talent-wise, though, I could make a case that he is as talented as any other horse that ran in the Derby. Helium, I tell you what, for as much as he got dumped on coming out of that Tampa Bay Derby, what did he finish? 5th, 6th?
He didn't run that bad.
I think he ran pretty darn well. I don't believe he's an Ontario bred. I think we should win for fun from here, no?
If we don't, we were wrong about this being the horse we should have picked. I'll tell you that much. No excuse.
But Helium, I think they're both okay. This deuce is in trouble.
Come on. I can't have mushed. I just mushed another one.
I'm with you. I wrote, well, maybe not.
We can fight it.
We're going to say the 6 is hanging.
Thing. Yeah, we're going to be okay.
All right.
We're going to be okay. It wasn't stylish, but the money was spent.
Soup and Sandwich, frankly, I don't know what his game is. I don't know if he's going to be a 7/8, one-turn miler. I don't know if he's going to be a mile and an eighth kind of horse. Helium, though, it feels like, look, he's run, I'm going to say, a mile and a quarter in back-to-back races, the Tampa Bay Derby and the Kentucky Derby, given the trip that he had down in Oldsmar. But I think they're both Soup and Sandwich is like an obvious talent. Helium, I think, is kind of sneaky, that people may just think that he was kind of the butt of the joke. And I think he's actually all right.
Nick chimes in that he believes he's pointed to the Matt win at Churchill, which would be a perfectly appropriate spot. Brian remembers that amazing Met Mile with its 186 buyer, or whatever it was. Larry columnist going a little nutty in the call. It was pretty darn impressive. Going to be fun seeing some more frosted babies out there. Fan of horse, is there a contest that chooses the horse that looms badly then fails to score? I got that down. You and me both. And here's another note on Medina Spirit. He thinks it was a fluke. I don't know. I feel like he showed enough toughness. I will say this. It didn't, to me, for my money, it didn't look like the same horse in Baltimore. We didn't see that toughness. You mentioned about the trip and JRV not going to the rail, which I think the way the track was playing was probably a mistake. But I think he was just being tactical. Mike Maloney made the point about him being worried that Midnight Bourbon was the horse that he had to beat and making sure that one was even going to have to go wider. Another reason I think you could probably upgrade his final performance over the Bear form is the fact that he went wide. I didn't mention that before about Midnight Bourbon. And, Johnny was in that position where somebody could try to come up and he could shut him down, and he was going to keep the other rival. So tactically it made sense, but I feel like the bias may have been more significant than the tactical advantage gained there. Yeah, I'm not ready to call Medina Spirit a fluke, but the future certainly murky at best at the moment. You think, is that fair to say?
I think he's just got that sort of I'm trying to think of like a good comparison. He reminds me a little bit of like a Trot Nixon. Anybody that's a Boston Red Sox fan.
I remember him well.
Think of a ball player who is not the most talented, but is tough as nails. And I feel like Medina Spirit, again, I maintain, I don't think he would pass a parked car. I know he's made up ground. I don't believe he would pass you if he needed to. But on the lead, he does not want to let you go by. And it's part of the reason I bring up. I thought it was pretty terrible compared to the Derby because I think he faced a much better field in Louisville than he did in Baltimore. And for him to dig in the way that he did, I have to wonder if maybe that was the last push. And now he's saying, look, I need a break. I need some time before I can come back to the track. But I'm with you. I'm not ready to say it was a one-off. I think he's a decent little horse. He's no superstar, but I think he can win races.
Hey, look at that. A guy who's no stranger to winning tour events in the lead in this week's HorsePlayers Happy Hour Tour. That's Dylan Donnelly with 60-30. He'd be fun to have on a HorsePlayer Happy Hour one week. In fact, I think I'm going to take a week off this summer. I'm actually going to take a week of vacation. I'll pre-record a show. Dylan Donnelly, that's the guy I want to get for that one. I've been remiss in not having him on sooner to talk about his incredible life journey and just the fantastic impact he's been having in tournaments. So very glad to see that name up there. Mike Gillum, keeping the good times going, 57-70. Greg Kingma, somebody I've had the pleasure of meeting at the Paddock Bar at Saratoga, 54-50. Stephen McNatton, 54-20. Charles Lucas, 52-70. John Bull III, 51-70. Paul McClelland, 50-40. Mark Stovall, 49.20. Orlando Arango, 47.70. And then I'll just go to 10th for now. But in 10th place for now, Richard Flax, who we saw up at the top of the leaderboard earlier with 47.50. Quite a scrum of names, though. 2 races left. Still all to play for in this week's Triple H.
Dylan Donnelly, you brought up the fact that he's at the top and he's, unbelievable story. And just from a contest standpoint, Craig, I don't know if you can do it on the fly. I believe Dylan has 3 of the top 17.
Oh, very interesting.
I mean, he's crushing it. Yeah, he's in 17th, he's in 14th, he's in the lead.
What does he have? Now let's look and see what his picks are for these last 2 races. On the top one, he's 4-1. On the second one, he's 4-1. So they'll ride together.
He's got them all.
Oh, and the third, so he carboned it up, which actually does make sense game theory wise here, because that one big week, you could all of a sudden, you can get multiple scores for the tour. You can't win more than 1 seat to the finals in the same tour event, but you can get tour points. So it'll be interesting to see where those lower entries end up. If he ends up getting this, if he gets this runner, he could be in a pretty interesting position. And he's got a horse here at a big price. Let's talk about this race at Gulfstream. That'll be our next one, and then we'll wrap things up at Belmont. But looking at this Gulfstream race, let's start off unscheduled here, but let's talk about this number 4 that Dylan Donnelly has, if you have time to flip in your PPs to the appropriate spot, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, one on debut, has lost 8 in a row, which is always a little bit of a red flag for me. But at the same time, we're talking about a 13-1 chance right now anyway on the tote board, who from a numbers standpoint is not miles off. Maybe a hair slow from some of the main contenders, but I mean, we're splitting hairs at that point. I like the fact that the win came from off the pace slightly. And when I say off the pace, Jonathan has really drilled into my head speed in these 5 furlong turf dashes. When I say off the pace, I mean a length, half length. We're not talking about 4 or 5 coming from off of it, because you just simply don't have enough time. Magic Flash is a horse who I expect to be a little bit more forward than we've seen maybe in each of the past 2. You get to that run 3 back. Yeah, fold it up, but that was going at a mile. I feel like you're going to be a little bit closer to the pace, and at 13-1, I'm not going to argue with anybody that likes this 4 horse.
Very interesting. Where did you land, Matt?
I was torn between the 8 and the 10. I ultimately ended up going with the 8 horse in here that's Captured the Genie. Mark Casse horse. We were just talking about Mark Casse with his 2 runners. One who has a little bit of early foot. Only tried the turf 1 time. I didn't think it was a terrible effort. I don't know that I love that we're in the 4th start of the form cycle. I don't know that you're going to see an improvement. But if you get something close to that 60-ish buyer, I think the horse is in with a chance. Now, from a price standpoint, 5-2, debatable if that's good value. I think it's probably close to a fair number. But push comes to shove, I think I would probably be leaning more toward a 3-1, 7-2 than a 5-2. Now, certainly not 2-1. But I ended up going with the 8 in here, Capture the Genie.
I was on the same horse. I felt like Capture the Genie was just interesting to talk about, trying to figure out if that seeming improvement from the last race was down to the class drop or the surface switch. The other thing that attracted me to the horse in general was I kind of have a knee-jerk reaction in these non-winners of 2 races for a horse who has fewer starts. The horse has some speed. The barn is going well. I thought it was going to be a tough favorite to deny potentially, but they're not giving anything away certainly at the 2-1, 5-2. But we'll ride here. Let us know out there, who are you picking in this race? We can vet a few more horses while we talk about it. I'm not sure who Artie is talking about. That horse will not beat the water truck in New York. Could be Rebels Romance. Maybe disagrees with your nice Rebels Romance idea. Maybe I don't know if it's a slight at Baffer. What's going on there? Here's a good one too. PTF your slight malaprop has given me a new username. Meet the new Looms Badly on Twitter. I like it. I did once enter a contest. I had multiple entries in a contest, and you had to have different usernames. And I went with Looms Boldly, my typical one, and I went with Hangs Badly, which I thought was the good, the net. So often the next chapter in the story after Looms Boldly is Hangs Badly. Here's a comment about the Gulfstream race. Interesting how little speed there is. Is that Is that how you saw it, Matt? What do you think about the pace scenario in here?
Well, I don't know that I would say how little speed there is given the circumstances. So 5 furlongs on turf, you would expect there to be just confirmed burners. And I don't know that you have that in here. I think there are a number of horses that like to have similar positions, maybe not outright on it, but pushing the pace. So I don't know that it's totally void of early foot. You also have a couple horses who have set legitimate fractions, but going longer. Now the turn back to 5, how much of that does that kind of soften them up a little bit as far as those early fractions are concerned? I don't know that I fully agree that it's a race that doesn't have a ton of foot. I think it has more to do with confirmed gas or horses that like to be forward. I think there's a big difference.
Some picks. The number 10, we're asked to, we can comment on that. We also asked about Zip It Jess. What do we think about those two runners in here?
Well, Broadway Peggy was the other horse for me. It was either the 8 or the 10.
Right, so you obviously like.
Yeah, well, now, to be fair also, a product of a product that I use. Broadway Peggy was a horse that I've started using a product called HTR again.
Oh, yeah, HTR is great. Yep.
Yeah, and she fit based on what the prior runs at this configuration, the 5 furlong turf sprint, a number of different metrics as far as your velocity ratings are concerned. She fit on more than a few. So, frankly, the thing that turned me off was when I looked at her on paper. She's 1 for 37. She finished second or third 12 times. So I wonder if she's more of an underneath type than maybe a win contender. And the other horse we're talking about is Zip It Up Jess or Zip It Jess, the 6. Again, kind of a speed type, one that may not be an outright burner, but figures to be relatively close. Don't love that we're 0 for 10 over the surface. I feel like, to your point, I would prefer to lean more toward more lightly raced horses because I don't think they're entirely exposed. But then again, you're talking about a 6-1 chance in a race that, could be perceived as wide open.
All right, let's see. We got a few other people chiming in this spot. Here we go. 7685 Superfecta. I'm not sure if that's the John Sakura that I'm thinking of, but it would be pretty hilarious if we did have the honcho from Hillendale Farm listening. Probably has broodmares to be checking on, but I'm guessing it might be a different John Sakura. Somebody make a joke, but if it is, that's really cool. So there's one idea, and then Chris Couples chimes in, giving out plenty of winners on here. Let's see. He gives a little bit of a shout to the 3 at 35-1. That would certainly be interesting. Sentient bidding us adieu, heading off to Churchill for the night. That's good stuff. Texas Joe going to play the 2 at 5-1. John Sakura putting in some real confidence here. The house and keys on the 7685 Superfecta. We'll see how that one works out.
To Chris Couples' point, I owe nothing to Bella Beyonda because I cashed on her when she broke her maiden, going 5 here last year.
What was the price that day?
28-1. So she doesn't owe me a thing. If she wins, I say, good on you, round of applause. You got another one under your belt.
James, we haven't covered it. Consensual's trainer got it to win. Hadn't raced for 4 years at Golden Gate. I missed the story completely. Is this something that's happening today? I don't know anything about it, but winning off a 4-year break is not something that you see every day. We can confirm that. We can confirm that at least. Well, interesting. They've really come for this capture the genie here. You have your alternative out as the 10. I'll see if I can come up with one an alternative on the fly, because I think that's just got to be too short, right? I mean, geez.
Yeah, to me, far too short.
Yeah.
In a race that seems pretty competitive, 3-2. I mean, that doesn't get the juices flowing. I was thinking more toward 3-1. Never mind, 3-2.
It's tough. I mean, Pretty Rachel fits on figures, but I mean, in terms of the pace, especially with blinkers off, I'm just a little worried she's going to be too far back in the spot. I think she'll come running to get a piece. Maybe I'd mess around with her in like the 3rd spot in tries, and then just mess around with all the other logical horses in 1st and 2nd. If you made me do something else. We'll we'll see if our best thought comes into play with Capture the Genie, or if the apple cart gets a little bit upset here in the 8th at Gulfstream. Then we'll have one more contest race over at Belmont. We'll talk about that, and then we'll get out of here this week. And we'll remind folks to set your calendar now. Get involved next week. Play. If you didn't play this week, play next week. Encourage other people to play. I'm excited. I think we'll pretty soon be able to get an update on the money we've raised so far for Thoroughbred Aftercare. I believe we are well ahead of schedule, which is great. And then the other thing that's put us ahead of schedule in terms of our work that we do for the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation is getting our In the Money whiskey out. We've had a bunch of orders for that. I say orders. It's not really orders. They're not for sale. But if you donate enough to the TRF, I will send you one out of my personal stash, trfinc.org/players for that. And it's a nice whiskey this year. I mean, it was nice last year too, but this is kind of a fun one. A 4-year-old rye that did 4 extra months in an apple brandy barrel, and it's tasting real good. So we want you to check it out. trfinc.org/players. You can also give directly to the TAA, tbaftercare.com for the TAA, Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance, tbaftercare.com. All right. Well, what's going on? We got a little delay here. Somebody acting up?
Yeah, they're just kind of taking their time, moseying about back there.
You don't like that. I don't like to see that mosey before the race. We got to get there. We want to make sure we get to Belmont in plenty of time. Have you looked ahead to the racing at the weekend at all? I have not.
I have not. No. Again, kind of going back to the idea that it's nice to take advantage of some of these quieter weeks or slightly quieter weeks. Oh, and there goes the 8. We're checked all the way back to last.
Well, I think that dream ended quickly, but we'll see. The horse is running on, but I mean, that's going to be awfully hard. If the horse wins from there, the price was a gift, I suppose, in theory, anyway.
Yeah, they're going to have to wing and ding from this point for us to have any chance, I think.
2's closer than I would have guessed. 2's actually in a nice spot. Who is going to prevail? Who's going the better of these?
I mean, they're cooking for the level, to be fair.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 21-57. I mean, the 2 looks like winning. Let's see what we got here.
I think somebody from the back is coming. I mean, the 8 is running. Here comes the 10 on the outside. Unreal.
Let's see what we can get here. The bottom-up key isn't looking too good for this 2. This 8 ran a big race.
Yeah, 8 really did run a big one, but the deuce is going to get there.
2
There are our horse and the alternatives.
Not a bad. I didn't do it right though. I stupidly didn't have anything with the 2 on top. But hopefully some folks out there, it's just John Sakura Jr. who loves to play the horses. Well, John, we're glad to have you. Thank you so much. Texas Joe taking off. We'll say goodbye. Join us next week. Don't mess around. We want to have as many people as possible supporting these great causes. All right, we are 2 minutes to our last race at Belmont. It is race number 4, and I'll tell you all about it as soon as I get to this place in my notes. It is a 6.5 furlong dirt race, $40,000 claimers, 3 and up fillies and mares, and I was once again kind of boring and with the favorite. I felt like Anna's Fast, being a flow move up, coming out of the last 2 races, should make the front and should step up in the second start of the layoff. How did you see it?
I was torn between the bookends, and I chose to go to the outside with the 8 in here. That's Glass Ceiling. Get some class relief. I think it has the ability to take up a position that's forward, but is certainly not as fast as the inside runner, or maybe even the horse just drawn to her inside in the 7 horse. It's not the 7 horse. Who was the other speed in here that I was talking about? 3. Gone Glimmering is a horse that's going to be forwardly placed, I'd imagine. So I looked at it and thought that maybe we worked out that sort of what I would consider the ideal trip. 3 to 4 wide in the clear. Yeah, you carry a little bit of ground, but I don't have to worry about any kind of traffic. If you just get a fair pace to run at, you're going to probably be 2 or 3 lengths off of it, I would think, once you hit the top of the lane. And again, if you're good enough, hopefully you have a chance. But the combination of the class relief, I don't expect any kind of a forward move. But to be fair, you may not need a forward move just taking on lesser company. So Glass Ceiling for me, and I think the price is fair at 5 to 1 right now, right on the morning line.
Yeah, I feel pretty good about those 2. Let's talk about the 7. I did not come up with. What do you think the appeal is there?
Well, another one going to get some class relief in this spot. Second time out for the Asmussen barn. From a fig standpoint, I suppose you can look at it and say she either stacks up reasonably with everyone else, because most of these girls are in that sort of mid to high 70 range, or you can look at it and say, can we get her back to that Remington Park race 3 back? Because if she does, if she can deliver a mid 80, she's probably going to win. And I can understand the thought behind that. I don't know if I totally buy it, but I can understand the logic leading into it. Having said that, she's being bet as if she's going to run back to that low to mid 80. And I'm not convinced that's necessarily the case. So I think she's an underlay, but I do understand some of the support, if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. I think you explained it well. Gone Glimmering, I thought might take a little bit more money than this. That was the other one that I was taking a long look at potentially, and would have been on my short list, who I thought might be able to sit just off and have a chance to finish past. IRAD in the irons usually means the price is going to be a little bit shorter than I guess, and this one's the price, at least for now, is a little bit longer than I was guessing. That's the other. If I was starting picks or anything, I would definitely want on side. I'd probably try to just get out of here in picks 1, 3, 8. Try to fade the 7 and press the 1 a little bit.
Gone Glimmering is a really tough call for me because, at her best, she can win this race relatively easily. At her worst, she could be off the board. And I think off the claim, getting class relief, with errata aboard, I would have expected closer to 2-1 or 5-2 than 7-2. And, do with that what you will. I'm trying to read into the tote action a little bit. I'm going to take it as a bit of a negative that she is the price that she is right now. Don't let that sway you if you're someone who likes this horse. But I expected less, and she's ticking down now. So maybe she does end up going off 2-1 or 5-2. But at the same time, I don't know that that's necessarily the money that you want at the very end.
Typically, I much prefer a betting pattern where it isn't just betting at the end, thinking almost like it's people thinking they're getting an overlay, or the best kind of money is more constant than that. I tend to agree, but I like the horse enough and on these angles that I'm not too worried. And it's interesting that it's like going up, it's going down, it's flashing. There's a lot going on betting wise. I wouldn't be surprised if this one goes off 5-2. I didn't look at the picks. That's always a great way to try to make a guess as to where the prices are going to end up. But it looks like it's going to be a pretty interesting little 3-way vie here. I'm happy to oppose that favorite, and maybe we can get something done with the 1, 3, and 6, or 1, 3, and 8. I did that thing where I said the price. I said the horse is 6-1, so I said 6. JK and I do that too often and confuse the hell out of each other. But
based on doubles, the 3 is gonna be a pretty heavy favorite.
Really, even over the 7,
which makes me even more dubious.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, I would love it. People have done this work, but it'd be fun if somebody wanted to do the work of really looking at that type of tote signal when those really late, because if that's right, this horse is going to go to 9-5.
Well, so now the interesting thing is the discrepancy between the double pool and the pick 3 will pay is not, it's more significant. So the pick 3s are actually pretty close, and it makes me wonder if I had to guess 5-2, 2-1,
2-1. Okay, so not completely, not completely buried the way I was thinking, but enough to be the favorite. True Castle back flashed out to 5-2.
You got to love your spot, right?
I like it, but I'm worried about True Castle, who looks to be running. But I'm getting a run from the 1 and the 8, and the 3's run. Hey, this was the whole bet. If I got 3 shots to beat this horse, and if I messed up, if I didn't get it, I didn't get it.
No, this is the trip that I was hopeful for with glass ceiling, 3 to 4 wide in the clear. You take your shot at the top of the lane if you're good enough. Problem is, I don't think she's good enough.
Let's see. It's you need fast data. Could be the key, to not let True Castle shake away here.
And there's just a body slam to get out there to open. I mean, again, don't get me started on it.
Yeah, that's who is it that time?
Take a wild guess.
Well, Paco's not there, so it's probably Irad.
There you go. Dig in.
And as fast as finding nicely here.
Nice job.
So that'll work. And that was a decent price in the end. I'm surprised. I guess there were stories around about those other runners, so that made that price, with the various steam on the 3 and the 7, that left that one, to my view, an overlay in a race that didn't appear to have that much gas on the horse who clearly looked the fastest of the bunch. So that's good. We had a few winners. No 20 to 1 shots. No 20 to 1 shots on top today, like you had last week, but we had a few good ones, and hopefully folks were able to get some stuff done here. Let's see. Did Texas Joe hit this? Oh no, here's Chris. All right, good stuff. Some of these I'm just gonna. Okay, Texas Joe does have that. John Gasper makes your same point.
I like Irad, but I mean, again, there's that element of, I don't know that we needed to go full body slam to get out of there. You probably could have just tipped out and been fine.
I was too busy watching the scrum at the top. Will they? Where did that horse end up? Are they going to look at this?
I don't think it'll make a tremendous difference. It was my filly she ended up third. So, but it was significant contact.
Yeah, I'd like to see it again. I mean, I could see it, boy, and then looks to be hurting there late again. But the way that it came, I don't think that it's not going to affect the top. Certainly wouldn't affect the top 3.
No, I don't believe so. Unless you believe the 8 was going to finish second, I'm not really convinced of that. So I don't think there would be a change. Put it this way, I wouldn't want a change in this race compared to what we saw at Gulfstream earlier. Again, just kind of the idea of I'd rather be a little bit safer than aggressive,
I hear you. All right, I'm getting some kudos for having those 3 runners run in there. That works out. We'll take that. All right, we're going to leave the comments alone. We're going to wait till this goes official. We're going to roll through the leaderboard. It'll be, we said 190, so it'll be the top 19 names.
Yep.
I'll give you the honor of doing the top 10 for our tour points. I'll run through the bottom 9, and then we're going to get out of here rather quickly because we're on a little bit later than planned, and I got stuff to do. If I'm being honest.
We have an inquiry now.
They are going to look at that. Okay. Well, let's see. This will delay.
I appreciate this. It looks like it's. Well, we have an objection as well, but they're just showing the head on of the stretch run. I have to assume it's from the.
It was earlier than that.
Yeah, I mean the contact was. Here we go,
yeah,
coming off the top of the lane.
So we think it's the pink cap. Yeah, there it is.
Just bounced right into her, and that's not even honestly the pan is the better angle. I mean, and leaning all over her too.
Yeah, but that horse. Oh my goodness! Yeah, there's a lot going on there.
And now to be fair, and I think Aaron Reed commented on it. Seeing all of that, I just thought Glass Ceiling was kind of going up and down. She only missed out on second by, I believe, a head. So, I mean, there's a scenario in which I could sit there, and this is the way that I approach any of these objections or inquiries. Based on everything I've seen here, did that potentially cost the 8 the chance to run second? Would she have guaranteed? I don't know, but I could certainly sit here and say there's at least a chance that it did. And if there's a chance, then I think there should be a change. And again, I think the pan does a better job actually of illustrating the initial contact than this piece. But even beyond that, I mean, Gone Glimmering is leaning all over Glass Ceiling at probably the 8th pole.
It is interesting. Before the first contact is made, the 8 is like leaning in a little bit, but then from there, it's like you said, bulling, and you could see the path. You could see it in the tracks of how far out he comes. So I mean. And how much was in it in the end? Half a length? I mean, that's probably supposed to be grounds for a change.
I would like to, again, this initial contact, you don't even really get to see just how significant it was from the head on.
Yeah, it even looked worse. That initial bit did look worse on the pan. Though it is interesting that it looks like Manny is trying not to go too wide, or like the horse is almost leaning in at first.
Well, there's a part of me that thinks was brought on from the contact.
The first contact.
Yeah.
Yeah. See what I mean?
So, yeah, but and even to your point, use those outside rails. Well, we're going to miss it. But look at their tracks.
Yeah, you can really.
I mean, you're out 3 paths.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like it was and again, I wish they would just show a pan view one time, but it's not as though it was a minor piece, and now we've got green screen.
I don't envy them. It's not an easy job, you know. It's not an easy job. Chantel said something about the incident. That's interesting. We can take a look. We can take a look at that.
I have to find it.
What else do we got? Aaron Reed doesn't like the IRAD antics, and we don't either.
I think it really has nothing to do with the individual. It's all about just safety.
Right.
You know, I mean, these are the sort of things that can lead to terrible things, you know?
Yeah. The kind of stuff nobody ever wants to see. No doubt about it.
And frankly, we can't afford more bad pub right now.
No. It would be nice to be avoided. Were you surprised at how good the TV ratings were over the weekend and the betting?
The betting I was, because again, and I don't remember who tweeted it, so I apologize for not giving credit, but someone said clearly, you know, the general bettor is not, the voice of the bettor is not on Twitter. Because if you had read Twitter, you would have thought that they were going to handle about $18. And they set all sorts of records. And from a television standpoint, I hate to say this, but I do believe, they made a change.
They did take it down. Okay.
Yes.
I think it's right. I mean, based on everything we saw, I think that's right. I found
Pete, you know what that means? Another exacta.
That's right. And we keep the try. There it is. Fan of Horse says it. Chantal says, I just ate my first Paco sandwich and it didn't taste very good at all. I'm glad myself and my beautiful filly Anonymous Secret are okay. I love my friend Paco, but that was not fun. Thank you, God. We all make mistakes. Love and do good by the horses. All right. Well, there you go. Thank you for the viewer who pointed that out. That was definitely worth sharing. Okay. As soon as this goes official, we're going to roll down these. This leaderboard, and we're going to hit the road.
But as far as the TV ratings go, people like controversy. People like to, you know, it's the TMZ world. People like, salacious things. So
it's not wrong. I mean, I tweeted cheekily, but honestly, you know, I guess when it comes to the last couple of weeks in horse racing, there's no such thing as bad publicity. And there is something to breaking through the din and getting through the consciousness. Obviously, it's nothing we choose, given the tremendous costs that are associated with it. But it is interesting. I mean, there were definitely people who were like super upset about the NBC coverage. It was too negative, this and that. But I mean, clearly it resonated. However, I didn't watch it all, but however the story was covered, it clearly resonated with people for better or worse.
I didn't watch the coverage either. And the only thing that I heard all week that I just vehemently disagreed with was Wright Thompson, who is a brilliant writer and does a number of things for ESPN. And actually, I saw some little piece he did earlier. I've got the PGA Championship on one of my screens here. He did an interview with Dan Patrick on his show talking about how he just doesn't believe that the racing fan wants change. And I could not disagree with that more. I think that's the national media making a conclusion that they're not really capable of drawing.
Totally agree.
You pay attention 3 weeks out of the year. You don't pay attention week in and week out.
Yeah, there isn't a racing fan who doesn't want change practically.
And I think it was, I'm not going to call it a lazy take because again, this is not his day-to-day sort of thing. But at the same time, someone of that stature, when they say that sort of thing, it continues to paint everyone in a negative light. And I think that's way off the mark. I think everyone.
There's a lesson in there somewhere. There's a lesson in there somewhere. And I'm not going to totally dismiss it out of hand. I want to think about it more. I can tell you it's definitely not right, but it is interesting And it's interesting to see how the world sees us. And I can see why somebody might say that based on the lack of change. They think that the fans, but I think it speaks more, and we don't really have time for this, but we'll talk about this more maybe next show. I think it speaks more to like the power of racing as a gambling game, the fact that there hasn't been like more of a ground up revolt that I guess he was thinking we'd have it at this point. It's a fascinating take, but it's not one I can get with. All right, let's do this stuff.
Sure.
You do the top 10, and I'll bring up the other 9.
Number 1, Dylan Donnelly at $75.10. Number 2, Stephen McNatton at $69. Third, Kevin Harrell, $67.90. Fourth, Michael Cavanna, $65.50. Fifth, Jamal Barnett at $65.30. Sixth, Tim Odorizio at $65 even. Number 7 is Mark Stovall at $64.80. 8, David Browning at $64.70. Number 9 is David Brownfield at $61.50. And number 10, Dylan Donnelly wraps up the top 10 at $60.80.
So that's not too bad. 110 tour points for Dylan Donnelly. Certainly the story of the thing. Good to see Jamal Barnett, who's participated in every one of these, get his name up there for some tour points as well. The other 9 players going on to Saturday's contest. Remember, you can buy into that as well if you go to horseplayers.com. Kerry Basore, I'm going to go with the Italian pronunciation. Thomas Piotrowski, Mike Gillum, Dylan Donnelly again, Jonathan Cummings, Stephen McNatton, Brad Anderson, we talked about him before, former BCBC champion, Greg Kingma, and Scott McGovern. So Godspeed this weekend as you go on to try to win in the traditional route. And come join us again. The top 2 every week make the playoffs. Top tour finishers behind them are going to make the playoffs. And then, of course, the overall winner is going to win a Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge seat. Super psyched to look at that leaderboard again the next time. That's going to do it for Matt Bernier. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatel. A couple of thank yous to our friends at the Breeders' Cup and horseplayers.com, and especially producer Craig, DJ Unstable himself, pushing all the right buttons. This show's been a production of the Breeders' Cup and In the Money Media. On the In the Money Media side, our business manager is Drew Coatney. Our chief creative officer is Jonathan Kitchen. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatel. May you win all your photos.